Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 182. Barry here with you and Rota here at nearly 10 o'clock. Firstly, an apology for not bringing you the show last week due to my illness, but I am back now. Before we get on to the general show, okay? Last week I was feeling pretty awful, and to tell us more about that, joining me in the studio, it's Good Morning the Road. Welcome to episode 182.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Barry Fear's YouTube page. In episode 182, we are very excited and we do apologize for last week. We had an incident which we will talk about it now. So I came to work and Barry had an upset stomach. So to end this, to conclude this, we had to take him to the hospital. Hence, we couldn't make a video, but Barry will dive into it and share his experience with you because I wasn't really there to know what happened. So I'm also very excited to know what happened and we can share our experiences together.
Okay, well, before going on to air, before uh, putting episode 181 together, just before we went to where I became really unwell, okay, and I was too unwell to to do the video, okay. Unfortunately, health does come first, not last, and here's my outsider for her opening view on this.
Yeah, so as Barry was saying, I would share my thoughts on how I experienced. So I got here about 9:30, and as soon as I came to Barry's room, he was using the restroom, the bathroom, because he was not feeling well. I did communicate with him and told him that I needed to give him more time. He said yes, and he did explain that he's got a sore tummy. So I reported that to the house managers, and they later on came and we decided that we have to go to the hospital. Hence, we had to call the ambulance. So I'll leave Barry to continue from
Okay, so it is very important that if the symptoms do not improve, okay, you've got to call 000 so that the paramedics can come and check you over. That's what they did with me, okay, and then they decided that I should go up to the hospital. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. So we made the call to the ambulance 000. We followed the protocols, and within 10 minutes, they came. It was a very easy process for them. They arrived, they came straight to Barry's room. They assessed him, took his sugar levels, his blood pressure, his temperature, and they made a decision to take him to the hospital. So they came with their stretcher, their bed stretcher, inside Barry's room, and we had to organize Barry into the ambulance to the hospital.
And they were very nice.
Yeah.
Julia was one of them. She drove she sat beside me in the ambulance, okay? And inside the ambulance, she asked me a couple of questions like paramedics usually do if they do take someone to the hospital, okay? And previous on previous episodes, you've got to tell the ambulance officers the truth. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. They were very professional. They were very nice, and they were very caring as well. So they asked the right questions. They, concluded that we needed to take Barry to the hospital, and they were right about that decision. So we helped them out because when they had packed the car, they couldn't obviously get Barry inside the ambulance. So they had to come to the other side of Barry's house and park there to get Barry inside the ambulance. And I tell you what, the process was as smooth as I could not believe how professional, how easy the process was, and how caring and nice they were.
And I will take a break. Welcome back, everybody. Now here's my outsider to continue where we left off.
Yes. So what happened was we organized Barry's paperwork and everything and gave it to them. And the process was amazing. Barry was in the ambulance with no time and they settled. So I had to come back and clean Barry's bathroom a little bit more because at this stage we did not know what the issue was yet. So I cleaned up a little bit and then I had to come to the hospital.
So, upon arrival, guys, I was taken into the emergency department because that's very important. The ambulance did the handover to the staff about with me there, and then I was introduced to one of the nurses. He's my outsider.
Okay, so before Barry left, I asked him if he needed anything. He did say that he wanted his laptop because he wasn't really sure how long he was going to stay there. So when I drove to the hospital, I parked at the car park and walked straight to the emergency department. And I mentioned Barry's name, and they looked in the system and they said that, oh, he had arrived and I could not see him at that instant because they had put him on isolation because they weren't sure what exactly was wrong with him.
So in the emergency department, staff asked me some questions about what was wrong and why I came into the hospital. And you may recall back in January, back on a couple of shows we did, okay, you've got to tell the emergency staff the truth. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. You have to be very open. You have to tell them the truth and say it like it is to them.
And don't treat the hospital like it's a hotel because it's not. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. It's just not a hotel room. And Barry had legitimate reasons to go there because he was not feeling well. And I would leave it to Barry to explain.
So, after I was assessed by a hospital, the emergency staff, they then gave me a cannula, okay, and organized some blood tests, okay, and then they organized me to have some CT scan. Now, CT scan, guys, is where they put you on a bed and they take you in for an x-ray on certain parts of the body. In my case, it was the stomach. Okay? I won't go into detail about that, but the results were good. Okay, and then after that, I was taken into the short stay section of the emergency department. And the short stay unit, guys, is like where you stay until you are discharged. Is my outsider.
That's correct. So I stayed there And then after an hour or two, I got told by the nurses that Barry has been moved to the short stay. But before then, they were waiting on results because they had taken some blood samples and they've taken him for a scan. So I told them that I was just gonna go have lunch and I'll come back. So I went out to have lunch and I came back at about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And they said to me that Barry is still waiting on some results, so he's just going to be at the short stay till they get the results.
I then left the hospital at 7:45 that evening and came back here with another ambulance back. It was a special ambulance that the hospital had organised. Okay, and remember, before you leave the hospital, guys, please have all your belongings with you. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. Make sure that you take everything to the hospital that you need and you bring everything back, all your belongings back home.
And in the emergency department, the staff will then put a hospital down on you. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. I must say that I will comment on the previous one that we did say. The staff at the hospital were very, very professional to me. I'm pretty sure that Barry had very good professionalism as well. So we pause and come back.
And welcome back. As I was saying, before you leave the emergency department, guys, make sure you have your discharge papers organised and all your belongings. And in previous videos that I've brought to you, make sure you know that you've got your medications. Here's my outsider.
That's correct. Make sure that you've got everything that you need organized, and if you are leaving there as well, if the doctors has given you a certain sort of medication, please bring them. But me knowing Barry, he's very professional, so I know that whatever instructions that the doctors and the nurses has given him, he will follow that through.
And we'll take a break and come back with the conclusion.
Yeah.
Back after the break. And now, here's the conclusion about my hospital stay. Like I just said a couple of minutes ago, please make sure you have everything, your medications, your medication authority form, in case the doctors have to put any medication on, like Movicol or anything like that. Here's my outsider.
That's correct, and that's exactly what we did. We packed it up and gave it to the paramedic. Upon arrival, we were very organized, super organized. Barry was lying down in his bed, so we had to hoist him on the stretcher, and it was so easy, very professional. Everything just went smoothly, and there was no problems whatsoever.
And to conclude part one today, always be precise when you are calling 000. Tell them exactly where you are, what the problem is, what service you require. Okay, because you've got to be precise with 000. Here's my outsider.
That's correct, Barry. I totally agree with you. You have to be very precise. You have to give them the exact information, no marking around when it comes to stuff like that. So just be very, very precise, and it will make your life easier and their life easier as well.
And if the ambulance can't find you guys, have someone wait out the front of the house of your business or your house, and if they can't find the patient in the room, say like my room, like they did last week, okay, get someone to direct the paramedics to the patient, and always have a clear path so that the ambulance can get their stretcher in. Here's my outsider to conclude with a comment on that.
Yeah. So the structure of the house Barry lives in, it's a very interesting one because a lot of people come here and they use the other side of entrance. But they were right. They parked right in front of the place. They came in with a stretcher. But when they were leaving, we actually had to advise them to use the other way, and they were very nice to move the car and parked it on the other way. And it was so easy to move him into the stretcher. So please help them so they can help you.
So coming up straight after this video, we're gonna move on to Easter. So it's back to back today, part 2 of episode 182 coming up right now. So it's back so from one path to the next. That's the end of the hospital story. I'm Barry Fair. You're watching the Daily Wraps. It's Wednesday, the 31st of March.